So today we're going to move on. We're still working with integers, but we're working with multiplying and dividing integers. Okay, yesterday we talked about adding and subtracting. Today we're going to talk about multiplying and dividing. So if you have a negative integer multiplied by a positive integer, you're going to end up with a negative integer. So this is when you have negative, positive, you're going to end up with a negative. Okay, so let's take an example here. So if I have negative 3 times negative 5, positive 5, negative 3 times 5, the answer is going to be negative 15. Okay?
How come it's negative though? Like what makes it become negative?
Because a negative times a positive is a negative. This is how it works.
So then negative is like the base number type of thing?
The negative is it's like when you put a negative in a sentence, it makes a sentence negative, right? It's like when you have, let's say this is your sentence, which is a positive sentence. I am happy, right? But the minute that you enter that not, it makes it negative, right?
So if I flip the 3 and the 5, it becomes a different equation?
It would still, so if you have, let's say 5, if you have 5 times negative 3, if you have 5 times negative 3, it's still a negative 15. Right? It's still the same thing.
Can the same thing be said for, can the same thing be said for, I just drew my, no.
This is what you're talking?
No, I drew a blank.
Okay. If you have, let's say, negative 5 times 3, that's still negative 15.
How come it's a negative though? Is that just how the equation works out?
This is how it works out, the math. Like, this is how it works out. It's like, I don't know how to explain that to you.
I'm just trying to get to like the base.
Yes,
so, yeah.
yes. So, I'm trying to figure out, I'll think about the example of why that is, okay? But anytime, the only way I can explain to you right now, and again, like it comes to my mind, is like think about it as an English sentence, right? When you multiply or when you add, when you introduce a negative into the equation is going to become negative, right?
Okay.
Right? So that's why
Rule of thumb type thing.
it's a rule of thumb, yeah. Right?
What if the sentence is, I am not unhappy?
Then this is double negative, right? So if you're not unhappy, then you're happy. We're gonna talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
Okay? Okay, so right now we only have one negative and the rest of it is positive, so that's going to make the whole sentence negative.
Okay.
Okay? The same thing if you have a positive and a negative. So I just introduced this question right here. I'm going to remove it from here. If you have a positive number, so that's 5, and multiplied by a negative number, which is negative 3, you're going to end up with a negative 15. So if one of them is negative and you're multiplying, then it's going to be negative. Okay? If you're multiplying a positive and a positive,
Is this math?
yes, it is. If you're multiplying a positive and a positive, have a seat. It's going to be a positive. Now, I said if you have a positive multiplied by a positive, it's going to be positive. So if you have 3 times 5, it's going to be positive 15. Right? With a positive, I don't have to put a positive in front of it. Okay? A positive number, you don't say positive 5.
Is that what some of the equations were from the other day too on like the paper page?
You remember? Yes. So you remember last time we had like negative plus 5 after each other, and I said negative times positive is negative.
Yeah, well,
That's the same thing.
so if they're in brackets and it's just a number, then it's just positive.
Yes, if it's a number, like, if it's like this, that's a positive 5. Multiply by. Is that what you're trying to say?
No.
If the number doesn't have any sign with it, it's a positive.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm trying to.
Yeah.
Like that one there.
Yeah, that's a positive number. Yeah.
Thanks.
Now, what happens if I have a negative and a negative multiplied together?
That'd be a double negative.
Let's be a double negative, which makes it
Positive.
a positive. Okay? So if you're going back to your sentence, I am not unhappy,
Yeah.
right? So that's 2 negatives. Well, how do you say that in a better sentence? If you're not unhappy, that means you are
Happy.
happy, which is positive. Okay? So the double negative, so negative 3 times negative 5, right? When you multiply them together, you're going to end up with a positive 50. Okay? Double negative makes a positive.
Positive.
Are you guys okay with this? That works the same with division. So I can change that multiplication into division, and then you're going to get the same sign. Okay? I have the rules right here as well. So if you guys look at right here, so if you have positive times positive is positive, positive times negative is negative, negative times positive is negative, negative times negative is positive. So the rules are here. Also yesterday what we talked about, right? We talked about this, which also applies to that. Okay? The same thing. So if you have a negative and a negative after each other, it makes it positive. Negative and a positive makes it negative. Same idea. Okay? So, what we can come up with this, have the same sign. So look here. Positive times positive gives you positive. They're the same sign, right? These two are the same sign. It's going to give you positive. Negative and negative are the same sign as well, right? You're going to end up with a positive. So if they're the same sign, then you're going to have positive. If they're different signs, you're going to have a negative. That's basically the bottom line of it. Okay? So if they're the same sign, so negative and negative, you're going to get a positive. Same if you have positive and positive. Remember, this is multiplication or division. And then if I have negative times positive, you're going to get a negative. And positive times negative, you're going to get a negative.
Is this only for multiplication?
Only for multiplication. And division. But doesn't work for addition and subtraction.
Imagine if you did that. Imagine if you did that.
Yeah, that'll be fun, right? That'll be easier. Okay? So, what would your answer for this be?
Positive 5.
That's correct. Positive 5, right? Because negative and negative becomes positive, right? 15 over 3. What if I have this? Negative. Okay? Because one is positive, the other is negative. Are we okay with this? Alright. Now, remember that multiplication, usually we put an X for the multiplication sign, but also it can be written in different ways, and this is where it comes, like it becomes.
Then matters, right?
You will have bad math, and then there's problems with that, right? But, so you can write multiplication. Sorry, do you mind if you close the door, please? Okay. So the multiplication can be written this way. So you can write 2 times 3, right? That's multiplication. But I can write the same thing like that. That means exactly the same thing. It's 2 times 3.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Just to clarify, that 15 minus 15 with the line and then the.
That's a division. So
Yeah,
that line is
so,
the division.
So the three, that's to depict how many times 3 goes into 15, right?
That's right.
Okay, I just want to clarify.
Okay, so 2 times 3, I can write it this way. I can write it 2 bracket 3. That means multiplication, right? I can also write it like this. That also means multiplication. Okay? These 3 are exactly the same thing. It's just written differently. So some books you'll see them writing this way. Some questions you see them writing this way. Right? We're still talking about multiplication.
It's only for multiplying and dividing, all right, for the brackets? Or
That's
so
right.
just-
Well, you can have, like, some people will do this, right? But that's now addition, right? So you have 3 plus negative 3, right? But you need to know if the 2 bracket, if there's no sign, right? If there's no plus or minus here, that means you're multiplying. If 2 numbers are after each other with no positive. Okay? Division, you can write it in 2 different ways. You can write it as 2 divided by 3, or 2 over 3. They're the same thing. Okay? They're both division. Are we okay with this?
Yep.
So, just want to see if there's any other examples that I want to give you. Okay. Okay, this acts out sometimes. When you see something like this, what do you see? What can you tell me? What do you see?
Is division
So there is division.
In the bracket.
for multiplication too?
There's also multiplication.
So you have to do your division first and then have to do the multiplication
That's right. Now, why do I do my division first in this case?
inside the bracket.
That's correct, because it's inside the bracket. So this is where we're introducing BEDMAS here, right? Okay, now, I want you to see this. Do you all see the division? Do you all see where the division is happening? Right? You have the 9 divided by 3. Where is the multiplication happening?
6 divided, 6 times. Sorry.
Times whatever 9 over 3 is. Good. Now, remember BEDMAS tells you that you have to do whatever is inside the bracket first. So you're going to have to simplify that first. So 9 over 3 gives me, so that's the same thing as writing this. I'm just going to rewrite it in a different way. Right? That's exactly the same thing. Right? What is 9 divided by 3?
3.
3. So I have 6.
3 times that by 2 would make it 6. Right?
So what do I have there? 6 times
3.
3.
3.
So what is that? 8.
Nobody is taking.
No, they're trying. They're helping.
Get every time.
They're helping.
18 or just 8?
18. 6 times 3 is 18. Okay? Let me give you another example. Explain to me, read to me what you see.
16 divided by 4 times 2.
Times 2. Now, I see negative 16 divided by negative
Yeah.
4, right? But it's going to end up being
Positive.
positive because negative divided by a negative is a positive, right? So, you see the division, 16 divided by 4, or negative 16 divided by negative 4, which equals to 4, followed by multiplication by 2. which is 8.
So how come we're doing that first and not the brackets, if the bracket just has one number?
Because the bracket has only one number in it. So I'm simplifying my division first, and then I'm doing my multiplication. Okay? Now, it is important that you understand BEDMAS. Did I explain BEDMAS to you yesterday?
I don't think we need brackets.
Actually, I might have a whole lesson on BEDMAS. Yes. I do have a whole lesson on BEDMAS, so I'm not gonna get into that right now. Okay? It's just because the 3 classes we're talking about integers, but I don't know what parts of integers I'm teaching in every class. Okay. So we talked about this. When there is a negative in front of a bracket, that's an invisible -1. I don't have to write that -1. So you see that 1 right here? I don't have to actually write it. Okay? But this is what it means when you have a negative in front of a bracket. Okay? So this is the same thing as writing equal to -4. Okay? So
So it's just 1 times 4, right?
it's -1 times 4. Yeah, exactly. That's what it is.
Would that be for -4?
That would be -4.
Yeah.
So you see that negative and then bracket 4,
Yeah.
right? That's the same thing as saying it's -1 times 4, which is -4. Okay? What if I have this?
-1.
That'd be a positive.
Positive.
Positive 6. So I have -1 times -6, which is positive 6. Because we just explained that a negative and a negative multiplied together gives me a positive.
Yeah.
Good. I think we're all on the same page here. We're all getting this?
Yeah, I am.
Okay? Good. Now, I did talk about the SNAP rule yesterday, didn't I? Right? Or was it not with you? No, not with you. With my 11th. See? Okay. So the SNAP rule is basically what I was just showing you right here. Okay? So when you have subtracting a negative, it becomes a positive. That's what the SNAP rule is. Don't worry about the name, don't worry about anything. Just remember, if you have 2 consecutive negatives right after each other, they have to be after each other, that makes it positive. So instead of being bulky like this and ugly, we can make it into a simple 3 plus 5. Okay? Because what I just explained to you earlier is a negative and a negative makes a positive. Simple? We're okay with that? Alright. Let me see if I want to give you another example.
The SNAP example is just at the top of what's basically what's at the top of the page over here, right?
Exactly, but with like in an equation. Now it's in an equation. Okay? So let's look at this. Help me here. If I want to simplify this bulkiness, what do I write?
T plus 5. Or -2.
-2. What's plus negative? What's plus and a negative? What does it make?
Negative.
A negative. So that's a -2 minus 5. Yeah? Because a positive and a negative after each other stay a negative. Right? Do we all agree on this?
Yes.
Okay, so that makes it -7, right? Because you're at -2. And then what's happening is that you're at -2 and then you're going 5 down. Okay, so you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you're gonna end up at -7. Yeah, that's your vision. Try. Okay, now let's try this. I have -4 minus -3. Let's remove that buffer. So you gave me the answer. Show me how you did it. So what do I write first?
-4.
-4.
-3.
What happens when you have two negatives?
+3.
+3, which is
-1.
okay. Whenever you see two signs right after each other in a thing like this, in an equation like this, right away I want you to simplify it and remove that bulkiness. Okay?
Oh, that, oh.
Should I give you one more?
Sure.
There you go.
+2.
+2 because I have two negatives after each other, right? Okay. How about this?
-7.
-7, right? So you're at 2. You're taking 7 steps backward. You're gonna end up at
No, just keep on asking.
no. Ask.
This is a totally different question.
Okay. So you're at 2, and then you're taking 7 steps back. So you're gonna end up at
-4.
close. 1 step more back.
3.
Oh, 5.
5. Right?
5.
So if you want to look at it this way, you're at 2. You're at 2, and then you're taking 7 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you're gonna end up here. Good?
So say you had a -20 in brackets, and then you had the division
Negative 20
sign.
like this?
Yeah, and then
Yep.
you had the division sign, and then you had -4 in brackets.
Yeah?
How would you do that?
So you're dividing a negative by a negative. What do you get? Positive. Okay? Now, 20 divided by 4, that's 5. So it's going to be positive. That's the same thing as writing this.
But doesn't the brackets mean multiplication?
Doesn't the bracket means multiplication if you don't have that division.
Oh,
Okay? So if you don't have anything in between them, like this, that's a multiplication. But the minute you introduce something else in between, that is going to be division. Make sense? Good question.
How come that's -5? 2 minus 7. How does it become the negative? Scroll up every time a bit.
How is this negative?
Yeah. Is it like from the numbers that are in the brackets, or is it from the
Just-
So how do you mean, how do I get from here to here?
Yeah.
Yeah? Is that what your question is?
Yeah.
I want you to look right here. So I have a positive followed by a negative. That gives me,
Okay.
right? Negative.
I get confused or something.
Yeah? Are we okay with it? It's going to be confusing. The reason why I'm focusing on this right now, you can use a calculator for this, and no problem. It's going to give you the answer if you enter it correctly in the calculator, right? But the minute that we start introducing letters, you can't put it in the calculator anymore, right? And this is where you're going to have to use your knowledge of this so you can get to the right answer.
Doesn't 11 equal a number though, or?
A letter can be any number. Eventually, it's gonna be a range of numbers, right? So, but you can't enter it in the calculator. It's an X, let's say. What's X on the calculator? It could be 1, it could be 10, it could be 15, it could be 500, it could be 200.7. Okay? So we don't have a value. Okay? So what I want you to do right now is I want you to try this page right there. Okay? So start getting the answers for this, and I'll come and check on you in a few minutes.
What page is that? Page 3?
That's the page right after the lesson.